Hi, all. This week we're finishing up our discussion boards with our practice lesson plan. Starting next week, you'll be working on the real deal, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But first off, let's take a look. The last portion of your lesson plan is going to be dealing with differentiation. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and cross-cultural connections, interdisciplinary ideas. And we'll take a quick look here at the template before we get into a little bit more detail. So adaptions to meet individualized and specialized needs. How will you adapt the instruction to meet the needs of individual students who receive special services? So this could be things like special education, gifted services, IEPs, 504s, and individual learning plans. So what you want to do here is you will end up utilizing your context for learning, and you'll put your students' initials, let's just say LG, for example, and then you will put what accommodations they have on their IEP. So maybe for this one, it's read aloud and extended time on assignments. And so you'll list those elements here, what adaptations are going to be necessary in the lesson. And then differentiation, you'll select the different types of differentiation you're going to use during the lesson. And remember, there's 4. We've got content, product, process, and environment. And as just a quick refresher, content means that we're changing the content, the standard of what's being discussed. If we're doing process, we're changing how students are receiving that information. Product is how they're showing us what they've learned, and the environment is where the learning is taking place. So you've got to decide which types of differentiation you're going to use, and more than likely you'll have more than one checked off. And then you're going to give me a specific description of your differentiation. So let's say, for example, the student I mentioned earlier, LG, has extended time, and so during reading you want to talk about the differentiation description. So during the reading assignment, LG will be allowed to listen to an audio recording of the book while following along. So you want to be a little bit more specific and then relate back that this is all part of process differentiation. And then the last part is the cross-curricular connections. And where we want to do here is we want students to start relating ideas across different classes and content areas. So here you want to explicitly explain to the students in what other areas they will see or use this content. So let's say, for example, back to that example I just gave of the student, and they're going to be reading during class, and maybe that book is on mammals. Well, you can relate that to your science classes and what they're learning in science. Or you can even tie it into math. If you've got younger students, have them count the number of mammals they find on each page. And so you want to tie in other curricular areas so they see that math is not just math and reading is reading, that everything's integrated. And if you're teaching a science or a math or a social studies class, we should always see in those courses reading and writing components and elements to make sure students are getting that reinforcement in those classes. So now, adaptations to meet individualized and specialized needs. This is us meeting the needs of all the students in our classroom. And how will the needs of the students receiving special services be met during this lesson? What specifically are you going to do to make sure that you have enabled the student to remove the barriers to their learning? And IEPs, and this is going to include speech language services, hearing impairments, 504s, English language learners, gifted and talented, or students who are part of the RTI process and just being progress monitored at that point in time. Now, differentiation, we got to understand not our students are the exact same, and we can't expect the same exact results from all of them. We always want high expectations for every student, but sometimes what we require of them to do to show a product might change from individual students. And so this is where differentiation strategies are going to come in. What strategies are you going to use during the lesson to meet the various cognitive, affective, and psychomotor abilities and learning styles of your learners? And we need to learn to adjust and modify what skills and concepts the students are learning, what materials they use, or how their learning is going to be assessed based on their individual needs. Now, differentiation, as I said before, is going to mean varying the content, the material, the pacing, the activities, sometimes grouping or scaffolding, adapting instruction so students have a choice for taking in information, making sense of ideas, and expressing what they have learned. So, example here, students in a fourth grade class come together as a group to begin a study of mammals. And after developing common understandings and basics, the teacher breaks them into small groups where they're given different tasks with differentiated goals for learning based on the groups that they're in. Now, cross-curricular connection. Again, these are those state connections between the material covered and other content areas. For example, in math, maybe you have students writing their own problem. You're incorporating writing into the math class. Or reading. Focus on reading a nonfiction book about a mammal. That's tying into your science class. Or basketball, if you're teaching a PE course. Practice dribbling with skip counting. That's integrating math into that course as well.